Hi, thanks for joining me and welcome back to the channel. So the subject of today's video is, I haven't done one of these for a little while, an original master recording or mobile fidelity sound lab pressing, MOFI, and it's actually the second MOFI I've had of Santana's second album, Abraxas. Now I did have the fabled one step when that first came out, which was the first of the MOFI one steps, and of course when that came out we weren't aware of the DSD step, which I and many other people have discussed before now. And frankly, I mean, it sounded, I didn't know there was a digital step in it at the time, and that record sounded supremely clean. And I subsequently got rid of my original, which it wasn't a first pressing, but my early 70s issue of it. So I only had the one step, and I actually sold that one step a few years ago now because basically someone offered me 800 quid for it, and much as I love the album, I don't love it that much, so I let it go, and I just never actually got round to replacing it. And then this one came out actually late last year, and my friend David Brooke of the Vinyl Adventure said to me, "Oh, have you heard this?" And basically he actually very kindly sent me a copy. So thanks, David. As I say, that is the subject of today's video. Now I can only go on memory because I haven't still got the one step, but I think this is a really interesting. It's a really interesting thing to talk about, because this sounds absolutely phenomenal. It sounds, if I go back and look at my notes on the one step, they're pretty much identical. I mean, this is so clean, it's so dynamic. I mean, the sound of the, on the sort of the more sort of rocking numbers that Greg Rowley, the keyboard player, wrote. So you've got where are we? Mother's Daughter, for instance, Hope You're Feeling Better. The sound of that sort of organ, it's so rich and thick. And I don't mean thick in a sort of a muffled way. I mean thick in an opaque, dense, accurate sounding way. The percussion, which is one of the things that's always absolutely got me about Santana. And funny enough, it really kind of is echoed in the Buena Vista Social Club, which I recently reviewed. I'll put a link to that up here because it's completely different music. I mean, I'd call this sort of jazz fusion, sort of spiritual rock. I don't know what you want to call it. We can make up all sorts of names for things, but it's absolutely beautiful and phenomenal. But there is definitely that kind of Latin slant on this. And interestingly enough, another record I've just pulled out to talk about is Bitches Brew. Very similar period, within a year of each other, these two records, and of course, and I will get back to this, very similar cover. And I will get back to that, but another one that's sort of jazz fusion, but much more on the jazz than the fusion in the case of Bitches Brew, and much more on the sort of the Latin sort of side of things with the Santana. And of course, I've mentioned the keyboards and I've mentioned the percussion, but what we've got is Santana's instrument is the guitar, and that's where I think this, it's the whole comes together, and it is just stunning. It is a stunning album. I think this one and Caravanserai are my two favourites of Santana. I love the first album, but I think this, it's the spirituality of this, if you like, the godliness, the divine that it sort of touches on, and I think that's what makes this so damn special for me. Now it's kind of interesting because I saw Santana a good few years ago now. I think it was in 2004. With my day job, I was doing the PR for Monster, the cable brand, certainly in the UK anyway. And they had huge budgets, and they actually they hired Santana for a private gig in Las Vegas. which I went to, and obviously got really great seats at the front and you know, in the private sort of area. And I'll put a couple of pictures up of that. But it was you know, a heck of a privilege to be there and be that close to it. But I'll never forget what Santana was talking about, and he was talking about the vibration, and you know, very, very, very obviously he was talking about the vibration in terms of a spiritual essence of the vibration, you know, like his you know, what he saw in music, what he was sort of trying to attain with his guitar was, you know, kind of God, the divine, the great spirit, the you know, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. And it's really interesting because if you look up the word Abraxas, it's got, you know, a bunch of meanings, but basically they are all that. You know, godly, higher than God, impossible to conceptualize. Those are words that you'll find Abraxas sort of defined as, which I think is just absolutely magnificent. And you know, in that respect, this album just hits me on so many levels. And it is, you know, hearing Santana talk about like that you know, the vibration being something to sort of, you know, aligning that with spirituality or you know, a higher consciousness. It says everything to me. And then you listen, you know, you look at the tracks on here. I mean, we've got, you know, the side one opens up with Singing Winds, Crying Beasts, and it's just, you know, it is just absolutely, it is divine. It is, you know, the sound of this, the sound of the percussion and the way it leaps out of the blackness on this album is absolutely phenomenal. And you know, his guitar, like the keyboards I've already mentioned, it is just sensational. You know, the listening experience of this is sensational, and it you know, it should take you somewhere kind of spiritual, I guess. Now, another thing I want to talk about is this cover, and I absolutely love it. This painting, let me just open it out, is from a painting called The Annunciation, and it's by an artist called Matti Clavain. I think that's how you probably pronounce it, because I think he's sort of French, German. But this painting was painted in 1961, and Santana saw it reproduced and, you know, just absolutely loved it and decided, you know, he wanted to use it for his album cover, which is all really, you know, really cool. And, you know, I just, you know, it smacks of everything that I love. It really, really, really does. And, you know, regular viewers will see I've got, you know, paintings, you know, I do paint myself, and you know, it just hits every nail for me, this, you know, square on the head. But what's really, really kind of interesting, you look at the back cover of this, right? Check out these figures here. Now these are, I believe these are the Wadabi nomadic tribe from Chad, not Chad Kassam of Acoustic Sounds fame, but Chad the country. But anyway, these check out these figures here, really kind of interesting. And then check out the reverse of Bitches Brew. And as you can see, there is the exact same figure there. Now, I believe that the cover for Bitches Brew was painted for the cover, if you see what I mean. So this would have been painted in sort of 68, 69. I'm pretty sure the Abraxas cover came first, although, you know, Abraxas as an album comes later. But it's still, I just think it's, you know, you've got two very, very, very kind of different approaches towards sort of jazz fusion from, you know, bar a year's difference, you know, the same period in time. And, you know, how's that for a kind of a cool sort of thing that appears on both of their covers? And of course, you know, both of these from Chad. Hi, Chad. Anyway, what else can I say about this? Well, as I say, the one step is I mean, I got £800 for mine. I was, you know, as I say, I was offered a price that I couldn't refuse, frankly. And David Brooks selling this for £80, including VAT, 20% VAT, of course, for those of you not in the UK. You know, if you buy it direct from the States, it's $60, but of course you've got to pay your 20% VAT and your shipping and all that on top of it. So, you know, it's a tenth of what I got for mine. But you look up one of those one steps now, and you definitely won't find one less than £1,000, and they're you know, between £1,000 and £4,000, which is just mind-blowingly ridiculous in my book. And this is, you know, okay, this is 33, it's not 45. So yeah, I guess it's not going to sound quite as good. And as I say, I'm comparing these by memory. But, you know, from memory, putting this on, it doesn't sound worse than the one step. That's the basic point of this. I'm sure if I had them next to each other, you'd hear a difference, etc. But, you know, because just 45 RPM cuts do tend to sound just that little bit better than 33 RPM cuts. There's pretty obvious and basic science behind that. This isn't a one step, whereas the, you know, obviously the one step is, and that's, you know, that's debatable how much difference that makes. But I would just hazarding a guess from memory, if the one step was, say, arguably 98% on sound quality, I'd say this is probably 95. So it's, you know, it really is spitting distance. You know, the difference between them is not great. It is not vast. But this one has the advantage you haven't got to jump up halfway through sides and flip it over, which some records that doesn't bother me, some records it does bother me. I think just as much as the having to turn it over, you know, 3 times on the one step or once on this, I think the fact that the one step, you've got to unbox it, you've got to take it out and, you know, all that malarkey. Whereas with this, it's just in a normal kind of gatefold cover, which is, you know, how the original was presented. And it's, you know, ultimately, I prefer it, you know, and it's a tenth of the price, at least, you know, between a tenth and a 20th, 30th of the price, depending on how much you have to pay for your one step if you really, really, really want one. Frankly, I'd say just don't bother, go and get this. It's you know, without having them side by side, it's as good. Simple as that, really. And then the last thing I want to talk about, because I've had my issues with MOFI in the past, and I've had my issues with Supervinyl, as they call it, or high definition vinyl, whatever they want to call it, which most of the versions that I've had have been pressed at RTI, and RTI are a great pressing plant, but this particular copy is pressed at Fidelity Record Pressing, which is a new pressing plant sort of owned by MOFI. It's their own in-house plant, in just the same way as QRP, Quality Record Pressing, is Analog Productions in-house plant. And I'll show you the record, but honestly, it's some of the issues I had with Supervinyl pressed at RTI, and this includes the one steps. Some of the issues I had were with warping, quite bad warping, and this one is absolutely flat as a pancake. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's quiet, plays beautifully. So, frankly, I think this is 100% recommended. It's a phenomenal album. You know, one of the best of the Santana. One of the best of Santana's sort of key period for me. I much prefer his sort of early spiritual work, if you like. And yes, I think this one and you know, Caravanserai are my two favourites. And you know, this is an absolutely stunning sounding version of a truly inspired album. Can't recommend it highly enough. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'll thank you all for watching, and if you've liked this video, please do click the like button and subscribe, leave a comment, And if anyone's got this and the one step, I'd be really interested to hear your feeling about it. You know, obviously you can do an A-B side by side. Other than that, I'll say cheerio for now. See you all again soon. Bye.